Hello, hello. Welcome back inside Studio S, looking a little different than we did like 20 minutes ago. I have shed my Hulk Hogan costume to be presentable for Anita Marks. How are you, Anita?
For me,
Yeah.
I might have enjoyed the Hulk Hogan like ensemble.
I mean, is this what it's like having long hair? It's miserable. It's so hot. Oh my gosh. Oh,
I'm due for a trim.
yeah.
So just FYI, when I was a young little girl, growing up in Miami, and when it was raining out, I used to stay at home and I used to watch Dusty Roads
Of course.
with with
Gold
my
dust.
with my stepfather on
Uh-huh.
on Sunday afternoons, of course, when it was raining and there was nothing to do outside. So so there's that.
There's that.
How
There's
about
that.
how about how about that? How about that for a blast from the past?
How about that?
Dusty Roads, baby.
I was a big Gold Dust fan. I had a big WWF kick for sure. Uh, mid 90s. I was at King of the Ring 1994 as a 5-year old, just crushing it. I have very vivid memories of that day. So if you watch the Battle Bets Royale, tons of fun with the guys from Unabated. Yours truly came out victorious. There can only be
Woo!
one winner, and I'm your winner. Not shocking at all. So, but now we're I gotta find a way to cool down. I did a lot of saying brother, a lot of that. I did a lot of pumping, a lot of flexing, and now we're just trying to flex on some knowledge. So how's that for a segue?
I
Um,
love it. I love it.
Anita,
Let's get to it
Anita,
because
we're only like 12 hours away from the Open Championship across the pond. It's going to be super exciting. How early do you plan on waking up to watch golf?
I don't sleep. Haven't we had this conversations? I only need like 5 hours.
That's amazing.
So
Good for you.
yeah, well, doctors would beg to differ.
That's true. True, but you're
Right,
busy, you know?
right. So I typically wake up at like 5 a.m. anyway.
Hmm.
So I'll probably, I don't know, probably, make sure I'm up at 5 o'clock. Um, lay in bed with my babies, my three
Of course.
dogs,
Of course.
and hope that the gentlemen we're going to talk about momentarily are working their way to the top of the leaderboard over there at Royal Liverpool.
Uh, Obviously, last year, St. Andrews was amazing. And there's always a sense of not desperation, but definitely it's the last major of the year, right? So golfers are coming in saying, this is the one I got to get. A lot of them go over a week early. A lot of them played in the Scottish Open, which of course Rory won. Do you think now that Rory finally has a championship under his belt, that he's now ready to maybe finally win that first major in like 1,500 years or something like that? Currently at plus 835, $10.50 per share on Sport Trade. Do you think he's finally going to get over the hump?
So to answer your question, yes. I want to say 7 of the last 10 winners of the Genesis Scottish Open,
Mm,
or I should say, wait, let me rephrase that.
sure.
7 of the last 10 winners of the Open participated in the Genesis Scottish Open. Could have been 8 of 10, but unfortunately, Matt Kuchar did not suffice.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I think Rory has to feel really, really, really good about himself because he's coming in not only having to birdie 17 and 18 on Sunday to win the Genesis Scottish Open, avoid a playoff with McIntyre. And he was able to do that. And we're talking about a Rory who typically I fade on Sundays.
Yeah. No, me
Sundays
too.
is Sundays is not Rory's best day, as it's been for quite a while. And of course, now he's got a 9-year drought. Is this the year that changes things? He's got to be feeling really good about himself coming off of this win at the Genesis Scottish Open. Data Golf gives him a 9% chance of winning. He won here back in 2014. He's on his side of the pond. Listen, for $10.50, you can guarantee I'm buying some shares. Dan,
What do you make of if we were having this conversation a month ago, we're talking about Brooks Koepka. Brooks Koepka nearly misses at the Masters. Then he wins the next major. And then, so in the third. Do you think we have a little recency bias with Brooks here, or do you think he is priced appropriately at $4.50 per share?
I think he's priced appropriately. Again, this is a different animal, right? This is a links course. You're playing out of the United States. Not only is it a links course, it is a seaside links course. So what does that mean? Weather is unpredictable, right? Like we could sit here and we can anticipate what we think is going to happen. But, in an hour's time, things could change. Winds could whip up, a storm could come in. You just don't know. So, I'm looking at guys that typically have a really good track record on links courses. I'm looking at guys that have grown up outside of the United States, and the majority of their golfing careers as young men have been on link style courses. I'm looking at guys who play well in windy and bad weather conditions. So that's how I'm handicapping this, just in a very strong sense. Guys that are really, really comfortable on link style courses.
So I pulled up one name here, should be very familiar to those who bet on the Open Championship. And that's Cam Smith. Right now, $4 per share plus 23.52. He's been talking about giving back, the claret jug, right? How he's been drinking beer out of it, has been drinking coffee out of it every day. And he promised his friends he was only giving it back for a week, but he felt emotional about it. He misses it already. He wants it back. You seem to like his odds of perhaps running it back.
I do, and for $4, why not? Obviously, sure. Again, he won the Open Championship. His short game is outstanding. He's got top tens in the last two majors. And keep in mind, I know out of sight, out of mind. You mentioned Brooks, Cam Smith as well, because they play on the LIV Tour. But the LIV Tour just played a tournament in London 2 weeks ago, and Cam Smith won wire to wire. After the tournament, he was asked, how do you feel your game is right now? He said, my game is more on point. I'm in better form now than I was last year when I won the Open. So I think Cam Smith is coming in. I think he's got to feel really, really good about himself as well.
Well, I'm on that with you. Just put $100 on Cam Smith.
Woo! I know, we saw so right there.
There we go. They happen in real time.
I love it.
We're going to go ahead and grab that. Now, I know, Anita, you like to make picks in different markets. Now, we don't necessarily have top 5s, 10s, 20s, but what you can do is pick guys who you think are going to accrue value over the course of the 4 days. So using some of those picks, we can then go into the sport trade market and try to identify guys who we think are going to make you more money Thursday night into Friday morning into Saturday morning. Who are some of those guys we should be focused on?
Yeah. So again, we just talked about Cam Smith and Rory. I'm going to throw Hatton into that pot as well as three guys that I feel could win.
Hatton. Yeah,
I do. I do
love Hatton.
Listen, yep. here's the like he's third in strokes gained total this season behind Scotty and Rahm.
Yeah,
I bet a lot of people. Well. I bet a lot of like when we talk about the big three, it's Scotty, Rahm, and Rory. But statistically, it's really not. When you look at strokes gained total, Hatton is third, and I think he's flying low on the radar. He finished 11th in the Open in 2022, 6th in 2019. He's got 12 top 20 finishes in the last 16 links tournaments, and he had a really strong showing this past weekend. So, I'm big on him this season, and I'm big on him across the pond and on a links course. So those are three guys that I feel very, very confidently could win this. And I'd probably hold on to their odds and, of course, their shares on Sport Trade probably longer than the average bear. Now, some other guys that I think are going to do well that maybe come into Saturday, maybe into Sunday morning, they're doing well. And you could profit and then sell your shares. As we know, it's the brilliant thing about Sport Trade at any time. One is Wyndham Clark. Of course, we know he won the U.S. Open. And I think he just continues to be undervalued here. The fact that we could get him for $1.80, Dan, I mean, come on. I know he's got limited links experience, but he had a positive showing in the Genesis Scottish Open as well. And he's really strong around the greens. By the way, side note, I hosted a digital show with a gentleman who just played the Royal Liverpool course. And
Okay.
he said the majority of their greens are elevated and they have these ridiculous runoffs.
Mm.
So if ever there was a time that you wanted to really have putting be a major statistical reason why you're playing somebody, it's
Now it's
this
time.
week.
Yeah.
It's now's the time. It's this week. And one more guy I'm going to throw your way, and that's Ryan Fox. Again, top 20 in the 2019 British Open. Well, the Open, as they like for us to call it.
Sure.
He won the Dunhill Links Championship, and he's excellent in the wind. So if weather conditions do wreak havoc, then this is a guy that you want. You get him less than $1. He's 90 cents,
90
Dan.
cents. Yeah, just snagged him up. Let's go back. I'd like to go back, if we could, to Tyrrell Hatton. I think because he's only won once on the tour and he hasn't really performed all that well in majors, that people do tend to overlook him. So his best finishes in majors: tied for 18th at the Masters in 21, tied for 10th at the PGA Championship. He did that twice, but not since 2018. The U.S. Open tied for 6th, 2018, and his best Open Championship finish was tied for 5th in 2016. So we really haven't seen him in contention really on Sunday. So in your mind, what is it about what he is bringing to the table, maybe absent of the stats, that tell you this could be the year? Or is it simply he has played it, it's his time, he likes his course, he's comfortable?
Yeah, I think it's all those things. And like I just said, again, when we talk about the big three, it's Rory, Rahm, and Schauffele. But statistically, strokes gained total, Hatton is third this season on tour. Just his all-around game consistently, when you look at the 4 major strokes gained statistics, he is up there. So one of the most consistent players. Again, finished 11th in 2022. 6th in 2019, and had a strong showing this past weekend. In fact, I picked him this past weekend to win. Of course, that didn't happen. We saw what happened with Rory. But going into Sunday, he had a shot. He was only a few strokes back. So consistently, it's there. He's allowing himself to be in contention come Sunday. It's just unfortunately Sunday he's not getting over that hump. Could this be it on his home soil, feeling really comfortable on a links course and on that side of the pond? Possibly. So for $4, I think it's for $4 for a guy, again, who statistically is putting up the most consistent numbers, strokes gained total. Why the hell not?
17 events this year for Tyrrell Hatton. 7 top 10s, 11 top 25s. So it could just be since that more casual fans look at him and they don't recognize him on Sundays because he's not typically in those featured groups. So that could be why his price is depressed just a little bit. Any other notes on the Open Championship before we move on to Major League Baseball?
No, just, really interesting. Holes number 1 and 2 are on the course are holes 17 and 18. So they took holes 17 and 18. They're making it 1 and 2. If you are going to watch, make sure you tune in to hole number 17. It's 137, 138 yard par 3. They call it Little Eye.
Sandwich.
And what they did, and what for them, of course, and what they did is they some guys might use their putter. And what they did is so it runs east to west and then or vice versa. And what they did is they switched it. So they turned. Yeah, so they turned it around.
I like that.
So there's a lot of these they really changed up the course a lot for this Open, and it's definitely going to be fun to watch. I'm not putting money on Schauffele. I'm not putting money on Rahm. Rahm did not participate in the Genesis Scottish Open. He has been over there for 2 weeks playing a variety of links courses in and around the area. But I just feel that since the Masters, Rahm's game has not been on point, so I'm fading him. And Schauffele, Every tournament he plays in, he's like 59th or 72nd in strokes gained putting. Again, these elevated greens with the runoff, he can't bring that putting game to this tournament and think he's going to win. So I'm fading Schauffele and Rahm.
Just looking up Rahm's last 4 tournaments since finishing second in the Mexico Open, 50th at the PGA Championship, 16th at the Memorial, 10th at the U.S. Open, and he missed the cut at the Travelers Championship. Those are his last 4 outings. So to your point, maybe somebody wanted to avoid. Okay, we'll flip things over to Major League Baseball. One of the last games in town for at least another 3 weeks before training camps start to get serious and we start to have a lot more fun on the program. In any event, so of course, if you've been watching us, you know about MLBI. Here are the top 5 teams this week and their corresponding plays. The Orioles are the number 1 team in the MLBI. At this point, they're now winning you $786 on the entire year. That's how much you're up if you were to bet them every single day. So kudos to Baltimore, your former home. The Cincinnati Reds are number 2. The Miami Marlins, despite the fact they've lost 5 straight games, are number 3. Hot on their tail, the best team in baseball, the Atlanta Braves. And then the Milwaukee Brewers, who lost last night to my Philadelphia Phillies, they are number 5. So unfortunately, because the Brewers are far ahead of the Phillies, I'm on them tonight. The Orioles are up 4-2 right now against the Dodgers. The Marlins down 4-0. So it looks like they're going to lose the 6th straight game. The Reds against the Giants. I'm on the Reds, the Braves, and Brewers. Braves against the flailing Diamondbacks. I know, tough for Anita. And the Brewers and the Phils. So on the Brewers there, despite my own personal feelings. But again, to remind folks, we're up about 6% right now doing this every single day. So our ROI, it's all about ROI. How much money are you actually making, and not so much an analysis of the game. This is more of just a predictive analysis of past performance and market expectation. So we're up about 6%. But Anita, I know you've got some actual researched, reasoned plays tonight that are going to win the folks a lot of money on Sporttrade.
From your mouth to the sporting trade god's ears.
Yeah. I've got her on line 1. I'll call her.
You just said that you like the Reds. I like the Reds as well. I'm going to play them on the money line. You can get that at Sporttrade at $50.50 at the Great American Ballpark, right? So Reds 31-22 against the money line on night games this season. So they do like to play at night. Ashcroft is back in form. He's only given up 1 earned run in his last 3 starts, which is really impressive. He's solid against the Giants. In his career, he's 2-0, and he sports a 1.26 ERA. The Giants are going to have Stripling on the bump. He's 0-2 with a 6.11 ERA, and he's given up 4 earned runs in his last 10 innings. So, and we've talked about it last time I was on last week, man. This Reds team is red hot. So I'm going to take them on the money line at $50.50.
We talked last week, Anita, about the Shohei Ohtani impending free agency. And since then, the trade market for him has really, at least reportedly, a lot of smoke screens and mirroring going on amongst other general managers, has really picked up. And now the consensus is the Angels will absolutely be shopping him. I think you think that the best place for him to go is the Yankees. Well, let me ask you, from a futures market perspective, who do you think will have the most impact depending on where he goes? So, like, do you think the price would rise more if he went to the Yankees as opposed to, say, the Rays or something like that?
So a few things. Number one, I think Ohtani coming to New York City and playing for the Yankees is the best thing that probably could ever happen to Major League Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Because nobody watches. Nobody watches him on the West Coast. Nobody stays up until 9:30, 10:30 at night to watch him hit 400-foot home runs and flip his bat in the 7th inning against the Yankees. Nobody's watching. So I think it would be the best thing that would happen to Major League Baseball. But I've had Buster Olney on a number of my shows, and Buster says he does not want to come west. He does not want to come east. He wants to stay west. So if you want to try to get ahead of the market, and what you're hearing is that he will be traded, which, could you imagine a team sitting there and they have to trade arguably the best player to ever walk the planet?
Well, as a rental too, right? So it's not like you're trading him to somebody with years on a contract. You're trading him with the knowledge that he may leave. So talk about suppressing your value on the trade market.
So it's wild. It's wild to me, right? And like, what general manager wants to go down like as the general manager who like traded Babe Ruth, right? This is even
Yeah.
worse. So anyway, so if you want to maybe get ahead of the market, I'm hearing the Dodgers, I'm hearing the Giants. So I would invest in those West Coast teams, because apparently what I'm hearing is that he doesn't, it's not that he doesn't care about the state of Major League Baseball. He just really enjoys being on the West Coast. It's closer. It's a shorter travel time to see his family, all the things, right? So futures market, I would jump on the Giants and the Dodgers.
So Giants, $4.50. The Dodgers have come out and done what the Dodgers do. They're now the second highest priced team in the market at $15 per share, plus 555. The Braves leading the way at plus 300. We'll sort of stay on the futures line of thinking because training camps do open pretty soon.
Well, wait a minute. I have some more Major League Baseball plays really quick.
Excuse me. No, please. Sorry. How dare I?
I thought we're here to feed the people.
Oh, we're here to feed them. We're here to spoon feed them.
So really quick, in regard to, we're talking about Ohtani, we're talking about the Angels. I like them on the run line. You can get it for $44 on Sport Trade. Let's be honest. Is there a team as bad as the Yankees right now? I think not. They've lost 8 of their last 10. And I think Rodon is back on the bump, and you know he's come off of the IL and he's been horrific. I think the Angels just tee off. So, and I'm not sure if you've got some prop bets available on Sport Trade, but Ohtani to hit another home run tonight, I'd be all over that. And last but not least, this might be my favorite play, and that's the Boston Red Sox on the run line against the A's. You can get it for $56.56. They've won 8 of their last 10. They're 1.5 games back for the wild card, so they're definitely going to be putting their best foot forward. They have Bello on the bump. Has hands down been one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball since May 1st. 3 runs or less that he's given up in 15 straight starts. He's got 7 really consecutive quality starts, and he's now in the discussion in regard to winning the Cy Young this season. So meanwhile, the A's have had a very, very difficult time against right-handed pitchers as well. So Boston on the run line, 56.50. The Reds on the money line at 50.50, and the Angels on the run line at $44. Those are my 3 Major League Baseball plays. So
okay. Love them. I'm just quickly pulling up our futures market here for NFL. And then we can talk about what everyone's really been talking about, which is the running back market, and how some people seem to think that these guys are getting shafted. I don't particularly agree. But hey, the world keeps on turning. That's how business works in the National Football League. But we do have some pretty notable running backs who are holding out for now. We'll see what ends up happening. But if they were to not play, how might that affect their team's futures value? So we'll start with number 1, which I know is near and dear to your heart, considering you're in North Jersey, you cover the New York market, you're inundated with it. You've got a ton of people who you know who live and breathe and die Giants football. So we'll start with Saquon Barkley, the former number 2 overall pick, who did not receive a long-term contract, has not signed his franchise tender. So right now things are sort of up in the air, Anita. If he doesn't play, how does that alter the Giants offense?
So very interesting, right? So they don't come to an agreement. So now Saquon's going to have to play on the 10.1. For every game he misses, Dan, it's $590,000 out of his paycheck. Right. If he misses 10 games and he doesn't show up before week 10, this year is null and void for him, and the Giants will continue to own and have his franchise rights for the next 2 years following. So, and he seems, reports out there is that Saquon seems really upset, really agitated, really angry, really disrespected about what's happened here. So, um, I hosted Sports Talk Radio with Bart Scott this week, and Bart calls it a hold in as opposed to a hold out.
Sure.
What does that mean? Saquon Barkley doesn't show up for all of training camp. He shows up at the last possible time that he needs to. He comes into camp and says, I'm not in football shape. So it's going to take me a good 4 weeks to get into football shape. So we might not see, I do not anticipate seeing Saquon Barkley at training camp. And we might not see Saquon Barkley play for the first 4 games of the season. So,
it's just so interesting, right? Because Le'Veon Bell holds out in 2018, 2019, has since said that was a mistake, shouldn't have done it. And it basically cost him his career, quite frankly. He sits out for a year. He goes to the Jets. He goes elsewhere. His career falls apart. I understand that running backs want to get paid in the same way that, say, wide receivers do, or rush ends do, or, quarterbacks, obviously. But I keep hearing a lot of the same arguments all the time, and I'm not sure they're that good. Like, people talk about like the average career longevity, right, for a running back. Well, how many running backs get drafted every year? Like, we are weighting that average down because 20 running backs get drafted every single year, and most of them don't even make it on teams, right? So I think, like, as a stat, as a talking point, that doesn't really hold water for me. So I think, look at other positions, for example, right? Fullbacks. Nobody gives a damn about fullbacks. There's gone. But Mike Allstott's not sending out tweets being like, why isn't anybody paying fullbacks? Well, because they're gone. And the game has completely evolved and completely changed. Why are blocking tight ends no longer really that valuable? Because now you want to play in space. Now you want to split them out. You want to do this, you want to do that. They have increased their value. I think the last 4-5 Super Bowl champions that didn't have like Patrick Mahomes as the quarterback, or you're talking about like more of an average quarterback, also didn't rely on a bell cow running back. It's like Sony Michel twice, LeGarrette Blount, Ronald Jones, right? So like the arguments to say, well, these guys deserve to be paid, I'm looking from a market efficiency standpoint, they kind of don't. And the guys that can play longer than the 2.5 or 2.75 years or whatever, you're still making good money. So the argument that these guys are so criminally underpaid, I think it's market forces. I think it's the way that offenses are now so much more pass heavy. There's so much more of an emphasis on having an athletic wide receiver room and not so much any sort of bell cow running back, because it's not like teams are trying to go for a 50-50 pass run split. They're more like 65-35. So if you don't have to pay a running back to carry the ball 30% of the time, why should you?
Also, I'll piggyback on that. And since 2016, the quarterback rushing touchdown rate has gone up from 12% to 20%. That's
Huge.
Another thing.
Huge.
Is now you have more of these quarterbacks now that bring that rushing component and rush for touchdowns as well. So it devalues the running back position. So there's all of that.
This isn't like collusion, right? Like Major League Baseball years ago, the free agency collusion amongst owners to suppress the value of free agency. To me, this is literally the game evolving in markets saying we just don't value the position as much. You don't see, off-ball linebackers complaining. Nobody cares about linebackers anymore. The Eagles are a great example of this. The Eagles have not put any money into the linebacking core in 12 or 13 years. Well, and in that time, they've gone to several Super Bowls, several NFC championships.
It's interesting you mentioned the linebacking position, because when it comes to football, your body type really dictates the position you play, right? Sure. And so guys that typically play running back have the body and the wherewithal to play linebacker. That's how you would equate the running back position to defense. And I want to say, was it once these 3 guys did not get their deals done, maybe it was Lev Bell. Somebody went to social media and said, I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth, but I'm telling young men who are playing the sport to change position and play linebacker over running back.
Or safety. I mean, safeties make
So
a lot more money too. Yeah, and
yeah,
the
but
other guys you're mentioning here are Tony Pollard and Josh Jacobs. I mean, the Josh Jacobs story is not terrifying. It's terrible. He's sitting in his car waiting just in the event that he got a contract, and then he
but
didn't get a contract.
to answer your question in regard to the futures market based on these three players, for me, I love what the Giants have done this season in bringing in Darren Waller, Paris Campbell. They drafted Jalen Hyatt. I think Daniel Jones in the passing game is going to be a lot better. But what's going to be interesting is if there's no Saquon Barkley, how our defense is now going to man up against Daniel Jones in that passing attack if they don't have a Saquon Barkley threat in that backfield. That's my biggest concern. So I do believe that the Giants are going to take a hit, especially if Saquon Barkley has a hold in and doesn't play. Let's say, even though he shows up, maybe he'll say, I'm not in football shape, and we don't see him play for the first 4 weeks of the season. Also, keep in mind, both Saquon Barkley and Josh Jacobs now are going to be playing on that tag. You've got Tony Pollard, who I think has a lot more to prove because he was playing behind Ezekiel Elliott. So out of the three guys, and I'm sure Josh Jacobs and Saquon Barkley pretty pissed off about what's happened here, I think Tony Pollard has more to prove and out of the three, will put his best foot forward in trying to show what he can do. But keep in mind, he's coming off of the knee surgery.
Yeah.
So not everybody is Adrian Peterson. So my biggest concern with Pollard is the injury. I do believe that he will put forward a more valiant effort than Barkley and Jacobs, just because I would imagine that they were more disgruntled, if that makes sense.
Well, as you could see, the Cowboys have the shortest odds of any of those teams at plus 1684. I don't think the Raiders are going to be very high on this list. The Giants plus 4569. And then finally the Raiders all the way at the bottom there, the third to least best odds. That was horribly phrased. But plus 6902. Camps are going to open up pretty soon. Go ahead.
But just to make a quick, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we just don't know about Jimmy Garoppolo's health. We don't know if he's going to be able to play this season. So,
but even still, I mean, do you think the Raiders have a team that could actually vie for, to make it to the divisional round? I'm not sure they do.
With a healthy Jimmy Garoppolo, I think those numbers would be improved if we were confident that Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be 100%. There's some talk and speculation, Dan. He might not even play at all this season.
Oh, I didn't hear that. Well, so I was going to go the opposite route. If you had some intel that says he's going to play, it might be a good idea to buy it now. Yep. And then when that gets announced, the market will correct, and then you could sell that for a decent amount of coin, I would suspect. I had not heard that.
Yeah, it's a really, really big question mark in regard to how, I don't know if it's his foot, his toe. There's something going on there that they don't know if he'll be ready to start the season, let alone be able to play this season.
Okay. Our last final little note here, Anita, kicking off literally this evening, the Women's World Cup. It will be happening 3 o'clock in the morning. So, I mean, a great week to wake up at 1 a.m. and watch golf, watch soccer. Last week we talked about the USA. You said you liked Germany as an alternative. Has that changed at all? Or are you still with those two?
No, listen, I'm all about Team USA. I've had quite a few people on who are more in the know than I am when it comes to these teams. And all of them said this is not going to be easy treading for the United States. As dominant as they have been, they still have them winning. They still feel that they're the team that should be favored here. But it's going to be some tough sledding for them. So yeah, I'm going to buy shares of the United States for sure. But I'm going to dabble with Germany. Some other teams that I was taking a look at. Hold on, let me call it up.
Sure.
So Germany, great defense. They have a very favorable group draw. The big question mark with them is, can they get past France? Also Sweden, ranked third in the world, and Canada. They won in Tokyo,
Yeah,
the
three
Olympics
years
in
ago.
Tokyo last summer. So those would be three teams that I would buy some shares in,
Okay.
outside of the United States, of course.
Sure. All right. Well, there you have it. Chock full of plays for tonight. Hopefully, everybody wakes up in the morning with a lot of green in their bank. Anita, Marks, thank you so much for joining us, as you always do every week. We'll talk to you soon.